Welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast, where we talk all things marketing strategies, business systems, personal development insights, and conduct interviews with successful CEOs and entrepreneurs. Learn the exact strategies on how seven-figure CEOs market and scale their companies with your host, Cris Rodriguez. Welcome, everybody, to the Seven Figure CEO podcast with your host, Cris Rodriguez. Today, we have a super special guest, Mr. John Geyston, also known as Hanshi John. He's been a lifelong martial artist for the last 46 years with multiple black belts in multiple styles, but most recently earned his Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt. He owns two academies, one in Illinois, the other here in Tampa. And on top of his many impressive credentials, he now has author added to his list as he just launched his brand new book, Embrace Your Awesome. Be sure to grab your copy on Amazon. John, welcome.
Well, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate having you on. So I've always enjoyed talking with you. So this is a great day.
Yeah. And, I think it's kind of interesting because on paper, you and I are technically competitors, if you really think about it, right? Our schools are, a few miles apart. And I think that showcases both of our abundance mentality that we have. We don't have a scarcity mentality. And I think that's important for all of our listeners because there are a lot of martial arts school owners out there that don't have that abundant mentality. And I think it really hurts them. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that. And I think, with me, when I moved down here, I reached out to you immediately because I'm like, I have no clue where I'm going to end up.
Yep.
Because we were at South Tampa. I think I looked at 12 locations and actually had done it in letter of intent to lease in South Tampa. And then all of a sudden the communication just ceased. We were back and forth on down here in Florida. The big thing was they wanted me to cover 100% of the commercial air unit, which everybody told me
those are expensive.
Yes. So we stopped there. And then what I found out later was that I got outbid by a medical group, but which perfect. So we ended up being closer to you than I had hoped. And but I think with our transparency, we communicated right from the beginning. And not only just to also give kudos to you, I came to you and said, listen, you run my marketing for Springfield. I feel very awkward to ask you this, but I would love you to do it here. But I know I'm also stepping on your toes. And, that's, I think for, you're the same. It's, we can do that and we work that out. And it's, but I think it's, if you I look at like, what's the rest of the world doing? I think we as martial artists get too competitive. We get too territorial. Every time you see a CVS, you see a Walgreens across the street. You see multiple gas stations and convenience stores across the street. And they're providing, if you start thinking about providing a service to a community rather than territory, I think everybody does better.
I love it. And I agree. I love seeing your school flourish in the Citrus Park area. Great area to be in. And, we could go way, way back because you've been in this game for a while, but I would love to know, what was the deciding factor? You have this super successful school up in Illinois, and now you're going to move you and your wife and your family down to Tampa and start from scratch, right? Typically, when you open another location, you're maybe going a few miles out. There's going to be some overlap, so you're not starting with 0 students. What was the decision that, brought you down here?
A lot of people think it was craziness, but it was a very quick. But over the years, I've thought about it. I've always wanted to do multiple locations. And for me, as a career martial artist, that was the one thing I had not yet achieved. I've been on the cover of MA Success with 700 and something members in 3 years. We've done that. But Springfield is you can be anywhere. I can be 20 miles in 20 minutes. That's not the same here. And we had attempted to do a second location, and they did well, but they did very small. And meaning I never could get that 85 to 100 mark. I never could get it up to where 300-400 like we did at the other ones. And I think that's just because the proximity, the size of Springfield wasn't a multiple location city. area.
Sure.
And, you know, with here, and then really the deciding factor was, you know, I'm 61 now. I've been teaching since 1982 and my joints hurt and I wanted to get, so it's kind of like, honestly, it was I hate to, I don't want to ever say retired. I just talked about self-talk. You know, I never want to say retired because I don't want to accept that I'm retired, semi-retired.
Sure.
And maybe in a warmer client where I hate winters. I got to the point where I really hate winters and you know, it was so much better. But the big deciding factor was my daughter, who always swore off college, came to me one night. I'm sitting at the kitchen table one night when she comes home. And it was June. It was literally, I want to say it was like the second week of June. She says, and she always was going to take over to school. That was going to be her thing since she's 7. And she comes home and she's talking to me a little bit, small talk. She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing a big instructor thing. Got a couple schools coming to instructor training tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. Just going over my notes, blah, blah, blah." She talks, she goes in her room. I get a text and she says, "Hey, Dad, I think I might want to go to college." And I said, "Oh, that's a good thing." Text. "That's a good thing. What do you want to do?" She goes, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "You know, if marketing, you want to do finance, you want to do business, you want to do," she goes, "Well, that's the thing. I don't think I want to run the school." And I said, "That's okay." And she goes, "You're not mad at me?" And I go, "No, I'm not mad at you. Your life is your life. I want you to be happy. You don't have to do what I do." And I go, "You want to come out and talk about it?" She goes, "No, text is good." And so the next morning, I asked her, I give it some time. So around 11, right before noon, I said, "Hey, do you have a college in mind?" And she said, "Yes, Florida Gulf Coast," which I think is down by the Fort Myers area. And because one of her friends was going to go there. And I said, "Okay." And we started looking at it. My son at the time was at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, $50,000 a year. I start looking at Jaden's, and if we had 12-month residency, it was 15.
Oh, wow. Big difference.
Oh, huge. So I told Amy, I said, "Listen, we got 2 kids that are in college that swore they were never going to go to college. And rather than spend $100,000 a year, I can think of $100,000 reason why we make that move to Tampa happen now and not in 5 years from now as we plan." And
there
literally, we made that move literally I had signed a lease the second week of August, I think it was. So It was that fast. So yeah, so a lot of people thought I was nuts, but I think the fulfillment was, I was ready to do that next thing in the career that I don't think was done yet for me. I don't feel like I fulfilled that. And then obviously with the family and the warm weather wasn't an issue for me whatsoever to put into consideration.
Palm trees aren't too bad. The beach, 15, 20 minutes away,
Absolutely.
That's not too bad.
Right.
So I gotta ask, because going from 1 to 2 schools is hard enough. Going from 1 to 2 schools that are, halfway across the country is adding, another level to this game. So I'd love if you could kind of share, like, what is the vision that you have for the Springfield location, the Tampa location? What does that now look like, and how have you adjusted to not just being a multi-school owner, but being one that owns, a school in 2 different states?
Sure. And that was a challenge for sure. And I don't want to, that obviously didn't happen in the 2-month window. That was something I knew I wanted to do multiple locations, and I'd worked with a couple different people. Fred DePalma was a huge resource for me back then, because I said, show me how you communicate to your 8 locations.
Yeah. I love the DePalmas. They're such good people.
Great people.
Such good people.
And that's actually where you and we knew each other.
Yeah.
Through podcasts, through your stuff that I was following with you. But I think that was the first time we sat down in person.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong with that, but I want to say that.
No, you're right.
Yeah. And so, I learned, I wanted to know how, we don't know what we don't know. And I think that jiu-jitsu and the martial arts has always taught us you have to identify and embrace your weaknesses, because if you ignore them, you're never going to develop them. So I'm like, I need to know how to communicate better to my staff. And I knew it was a goal that I was going to be doing in years. So, I just didn't know it was going to happen in 60 days opposed to 6 years. But I think for me, it was how to communicate. We had developed the staff. I started putting our instructor manual, rather than this book that I was spinning with people. I put it into a teachable program. And so I had my entire, that was the very first step I did, was took our instructor manual. I let them move at their own pace through that. And
so you basically took it from like, print to digital, right?
yes. And then I still meet with them, and I still do to this day, meet with them for an hour once a week. And, for just the instructor training. Obviously, my staff knows I'm available to them. We do 2 Zoom calls, official meetings a week up there, and then I'm physically here. So, but yeah, so that was the big step. And then how we wrap up the end of the night, how we communicate, how I'm paying attention to the stats and the different things of knowing what's going on. And I think that was the biggest thing. Regardless if my school, the ideal situation, that school would have been, 15 miles away, maybe in Springfield, 20-minute drive, maybe, but it ended up being 1,200 miles away, and it still worked. And it's working really, really well. And then also to the people that are running that academy, they're just good. They're good. They've been with me for a while. There was no real training buy-in time needed, because they understood. They were a part of that culture. They were a product of that culture, I should say.
Sure.
So it was very easy for them to know what I was looking for and what we stood for and what our mission was. And that was the easy part, with the staff I had down here. That was a brand new guy. So that was a different approach of getting him to understand who we are, spending time with him. He was a Shoin-ryu. He was a green belt in Shoin-ryu karate. And he had done it 12 years earlier. So he wasn't even an active martial artist when I hired him. But he was, when I talked to him, when he talked about how martial arts and karate changed his life and what he wanted in life, you saw that there was a passion for helping other people. And I think to me, that was more important than his physical skills.
Sure.
And we hired a guy that was physically talented, and we got rid of that person immediately because he didn't fit the culture. And as I told that person, I'm not telling you what you do is wrong. I'm telling you it doesn't fit here.
Sure.
And I think that's the way of, training the staff was, making sure I had the right people in the right spots, and they understood at the end of the day. So I think that is the multiple location. I think that was really the biggest shift for me to have to make. And I understood it, but I didn't quite know how to apply it.
Sure.
I can tell you how to get out of a headlock, but I don't know if I can always get out of the headlock. So,
well, it's amazing what happens when you get the right people in the right seats, and you protect the culture at all costs, right? Because I don't think that you would have felt very confident moving down to Tampa and leaving, the Springfield location if you didn't have right people, right seats, and the right culture.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about how are you juggling in terms of, you said your 2 meetings a week for each, for the Springfield location. One good thing that came out of COVID is we all know how to use Zoom now, right? So you can do that on Zoom.
Yeah.
But what is the execution of what you're doing? What does that day-to-day look like? How often are you going to the Springfield location? Are you trying to be on a specific rhythm? Like I'm going every month or every quarter? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, no, it's, with the Springfield location in the beginning, the first 4 months. So it took us about 6 months before we ever got open in Tampa. So I had this 6-month window, and that 6-month window was training. The guy that I moved down here, he was a part of Springfield still, but he was that new guy that we brought in, and he literally was on what we call our intern program. And there was no real spot for him. And, but within, I was there. I was going every 3 weeks for 4 days, and I did that for the first 3 months. Which you've come off. I've just watched your schedule. You came off a very extensive travel, and that was difficult. To trying to get settled here, trying to look at property, trying to get your kids in college, trying to get your kids in grade school, and then going back up there and trying to be with them and spend that quality of time, and then still teaching and making your students not feel. Now, for me, I was already removed off the floor other than the advanced jiu-jitsu classes that I taught. And as a matter of fact, I had 2 schools in Illinois at that time. The smaller one and the bigger one. We ended up just when I lost a staff member, we ended up merging just that second school back into the first school just here in the last 6 months.
Okay.
So for the first year, there was 2 locations up there. And so I'd go up there for the 4 days and try to bounce between the 2. And then also let the students know I didn't abandon you.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't abandon you. I'm still here. So I would still teach in the evening. I would do that. So, and then we, I realized I knew it wasn't a decision. It was, I will come there every 3 weeks for 4 to 5 days as long as we need to. And really by the 3rd, 4th month, I looked at the manager, and he was kind of overseeing both locations. We treated the Rochester as a satellite because it had 85, 90 students, a much smaller operation than the 300. And I said, I don't think you need me here all 4 days. And he goes, Hanshi, we always want you here. I mean, I go, no. I appreciate that. How often do you think you need me? And he goes, honestly, I think we can get everything done in 2 days. So then I reduced it to 2, but I listened to what he wanted. I wasn't going to say, you guys only need me 2. Tell me how long you need me here and I will be here. If you need me here longer than 4 days, I'll be here longer than 4 days. And so I think it was, that was the big change that when I was going up there. And then it got to, I did not go up there last year. It's running so smooth. And it wasn't planned this way, but I really appreciated how it turned out. I was not there at all during the winter months. I wasn't there in December, January, or February. They didn't see me. They saw me.
Too much snow.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I joked. And I said, there was a reason I moved. So I was there in November. They didn't see me again until March, the first part of March. And, they had great months. They did great things. They have great leads, great intros because we have a great marketing agency. So, everything ran smooth. And now I try to get up there I literally go in sometimes for a day, sometimes it's 2, and I go about every 6 weeks now.
Okay. Man, you must have racked up some serious frequent flyer miles the first few months.
I did, for sure.
So, we talked about kind of the vision of you always wanted to have the 2 schools, probably never thought it was going to happen in the time horizon that it did. Both are, turning out to be incredibly successful. Talked a little bit about, what the day-to-day looks like in terms of, multiple meetings on Zoom, also doing instructor training, and then here with your, Tampa-based team. Let's talk a little bit about, optimization and maybe some superpowers. You've seen a lot, you've been teaching since the 80s, you've been a martial artist your whole life. What do you think are some of the skill sets? And let's start with like the school owner aspect. What are some of the skill sets that you believe that, school owners should really focus on honing and developing so that they could, if they wanted, potentially run multiple locations?
Yeah, I think that, the hardest part, and I think that's easy for me to answer from the very naive John that went from, my whole thing was, I did martial arts as 9 for a very short window of the summer. I did it as a teenager for almost a year and a half, 2 years. And then at 18 at a community college, I got back into it. And at 19 in that community college, it's a 2-year college. And I was there for law enforcement. I was going to become a police officer. Okay. And I started, and my instructor, we were an affiliate of a main school in Springfield. Well, I'm putting myself through community college. I'm delivering pizzas in a red jumpsuit, driving a 3 different colored powder blue Vega station wagon. And
MapQuest wasn't around. So you needed a physical map to know where you're going.
Absolutely. So, and the instructor came to me the second year of the program, the head instructor, not the instructor who was teaching the program, he moved on. 2 years, he moved on. He actually went and he used his degree and went to Tennessee and got a job. And the head guy came and he asked me and another guy, he goes, if you guys will take over the program, I will give you free membership to the main academy. I'm like, I'm in. because and then I realized I was such a great business guy. I negotiated working 20-hour weeks for $52.50 a month because but I did, what it did was, to me, it was like, hey, these are the guys I'm with. We're going to train, and I was very heavy in competition then. And then I think it was the second time that they tested, somebody, 2 or 3 people talked about how I changed their life and how I helped them refocus. I never saw that happen in my own life, let alone ever been given that credit. So for me, it was very quickly that passion for teaching. I thought, hey, I might be decent at this. And then I went and I continued the school. I continued to teach here even after I graduated. And then I opened up in a small community, and then I ended up buying a building, a $7,000 building in a community that was only had like 1,000 people in it, but it was less than the car payment. But
yeah, I was gonna say, you can't even get a car for that much these days.
No, it was literally less than a car payment, and but that was just the passionate guy. I learned how to teach, maybe had a natural gift to talk to people and how to communicate the karate at that time. But I knew nothing about business. So I think for me, for sure, it was, I was 11, my professional career, that was all part-time. My professional career was, I ended up out of DOT and I ended up in labor relations. And there was a point where I was going to go to law school. I took the, I got accepted into law school. And then there was this fork in the road at this point. There's a pivotal paradigm shift. I was working as a labor relations specialist for 11 years, I'm sorry. And then the union hired me away. And I kept thinking, do I want to go to law school or do I want to do this? And I did that, and I went with it, and I didn't like the job. And I wanted out. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to pursue my passion full time. Well, I was making, in 1996, I'm making 6 figures. And the very first year, I'm like, oh, this is all I need. X amount of people, I'll make I won't make 6 figures, but if I get to this number, I could. I made $5,000 my first year full time. Okay. And it was so bad. Thank God I was single and had a lot of money saved up from making 6 figures. And it was difficult. And I joined United Professionals. And somebody recommended it. I'm like, how are you? In my area, nobody was teaching martial arts full-time as a career. Nobody. You heard about Fred Degenberger up in Chicago back then, but he's unique. He's a phenom. Nobody could do that. All my instructors, none of them. Matter of fact, when I went full-time, 2 of my former instructors called me and told me not to do it. It'd be the worst decision I ever make in my life.
Wow.
These are my mentors.
Yeah.
I've listened to everything they said. And I'm so grateful I never listened to them. But that's part of my stubborn personality as well. So I did it, and then we turned that school around. And I mean, and the rest was history. I was up to 150 students in the first year after making 5,000. And then we were up to 400 students 2 years later. And then I was speaking for UP. Then UP hired me. And that was the beginning. So I think it's understanding that being the reason that long story was to say, being a great martial artist or even a great teacher, you're a great martial artist, and you have this segment where you're possibly able to communicate martial arts, because we all know great martial artists that cannot teach.
Correct.
But that has zero to do with operating a school.
100%.
And I knew I needed to learn how to do business. And to some people in the traditional karate circles back then, I was offensive.
Yeah.
How dare you?
You're a sellout, right?
Yeah, how dare you make money? And so, I think for me, it's like understanding that you need to know business. You need to understand marketing. And I don't have to be an expert at it, because there's experts that you can get. I don't have to be an expert I don't have to be a CPA, but I need to know how to run my books and understand my books and have that communication with my CPA. I need to understand sales. That was the taboo word. If you use sales in the 80s or 90s in karate, you definitely were, the Antichrist. You don't talk like that. So, it was, I think, understanding business. And I think, and to me, that is obvious today. But then when I have conversations with people, I understand it's not as obvious as I think it is.
No, it's not, right? And I love how you have this like two roads diverged or story,
Yes.
right? And you went the road less traveled and tried to do it on your own, realized this isn't working, and then you sought out the help of mentorship, right? It's like
Yes.
the same thing. We don't want our students trying to go on YouTube learning martial arts. We want them to seek out a professional and an expert that can help them. So, you said something that I absolutely loved. Like, you don't need to be an expert, but you should have a foundational understanding of, sales, your books. Talk to me a little bit about the marketing mix that you do, because yes, we run your ads, but that's not the only marketing that you do. And I think that's a big mistake that school owners put all of their eggs in one basket. We saw this during COVID. They just had one kind of marketing strategy, and that marketing strategy went out the window. And because, you're here local, I see you doing a lot of, kind of grassroots marketing is what I would call it. But talk to me about, like, what is your typical marketing mix on a month-to-month basis? What is that?
I think that's a difficult path, because sometimes it's difficult to do, with today's world. We've done pizza box toppers, we have walked neighborhood and put on and door hangers. Well, in Tampa, there's every neighborhood is no solicitation. Yep. So I can't go to those neighborhoods, or they're gated, and I'm not supposed to be in those neighborhoods. So sometimes it's very difficult, but I think you just got to get out there and see. So like it's I went to an event last night, the multicultural event. I called them to say, hey, are you doing trunk or treat? We'd love to get involved. We're not doing that this year. We're doing a multicultural event. And again, this is just where I'm thinking, okay, I don't know where I fit in there. I said, how can I get involved with that? Because I just know I want to meet people.
Sure.
And she was like, well, it's about countries. And I said, okay, what if I talked about, we talked about Brazil and how Japanese Jiu-Jitsu came from there, and we're with Hoyler Gracie, and we'll go that way. And then to me, I'm like, I get that done. And I'm like, yes. And then I started about a day before the event, I started realizing, she goes, oh, the Brazilian culture is going to be excited to talk to you about Brazil. And I'm thinking, I've never been there. I don't speak Portuguese. So I called my guy. I got 3 students from Brazil, and I called Glauber, and I said, Glauber, instead of helping with the kids class on Thursday night, how would you like to go with me and talk about your country and he goes, oh, that would be excellent. I will do this. I said, great. So, but I just wanted in. Sure. And I share that because I'm going to get in, and then I'll figure out how once I get there. And then who needs to help me with that once I get there? Because we know we got the resources, but too many people won't take the action. They try to overthink it. Like, well, I don't know what I could do in multicultural. I'll talk back to you. And then what we never do is we never circle back. We never make the date. Tonight we'll be doing trunk or treat. We do first Friday in the neighborhood. We try to just to be out, and I try to do that stuff a minimum of 2 times a month. We've tried to work. We've done the mall, where we've been there for the Easter Bunny. And we've had a booth at that. And not everything is a home run.
Sure.
Not everything. I actually had more people talk to me about jiu-jitsu last night at the booth about Brazil than I had people talk to me at the last 3 First Fridays in West Chase. Yeah. So it's just, look out there in the community and see what's going on. But I think it's, we did pizza box toppers. We still did that. We still do that. It's just getting out there and trying, and then, your internal. What are we doing internal? Referral contest. And I think the best internal is just treat people right and have a great, exciting, positive experience for them. And they're going to tell people regardless. Right. You've never once asked me to tell anybody about Girl Pro, but I've told at least 6, 7 school owners in the last 90 days about Girl Pro. So it's because it's a positive experience. So I think we need to, as school owners, understand we're in the relationship business. The martial arts is a product. The business is relationships. And once we understand that, everything kind of changes.
I absolutely love, because I feel like most schools would have stopped when the, elementary school said, we're not doing a trunk or treat. right? And they would have stopped right then. And then you asked, well, are you doing something else?
Yes.
And not accepting no as the answer. And I think another really important thing that you touched on is that not every single one is going to knock it out of the park. And I think what happens is school owners set up a booth. Maybe they've never done it before. They set up a booth at a spring fling or a fall festival. And because they might not have learned the proper way of doing it, or maybe there weren't a ton of people there, they don't have they're not getting 30, 40 booked appointments or a ton of leads. So they write it off. And then they say booths don't work. And it's like, we go, I love the fishing analogy because we're here in, beautiful Florida, but you got to cast it out. And if you don't get it, then you bring it in, you put some more bait and you cast it out again. And the more casts that you put out, the more lines that you put out, the more activity is happening, right? It would be like our students, we teach them how to do an arm bar and they go to do the arm bar when they're grappling and they don't hit it. And they say, this doesn't work. Right. And we see this often in business. So yeah. I'd love for you to touch on, because you said something and I hope people are picking up these nuggets that you're dropping, but you basically said there's nothing better than just providing a great service, right? And when you provide great service, people are going to naturally refer, and you should absolutely still do things like referral contests to help, strum up that attention. But what do you believe some of the things are that you've implemented in terms of like the customer experience, the customer journey, customer service that you feel like maybe more schools should focus on implementing? Let's just kind of unpack that a little bit.
I would say that we have our method of our 90-day onboarding process for sure. Because I think the biggest questions I see so many school owners, they're either good at the intro or they're not. And then they get the intro, but the ones that are good at it have a tendency, like I signed that person, they don't even know if that person ever came to class. And they don't realize until that person didn't make their first payment, they go back and look at the attendance, the guy never even showed up to class. And I've seen that. And I've actually had a program director that did that 5 years ago. And I asked him, I said, hey man, that's your job. Therefore, not the enrollment's not your job. The onboarding process, the first 90 days is in your hands. And I think so many school owners focus on that same thing. It's numbers, because you go in an event and you'll hear someone say, oh, I did this event and I got 750 names. Okay. 750 names, great. How many came in and did intros? That's what I want to know. I don't want to know how many names you got. I want to know how many people actually walked in the building. If you're giving away a prize, of course you're going to get 750 names. If I'm giving away an iPad, but who's coming into my business? So I think that moment they walk in the door, and this sounds so crazy simple, but I watch so many, I've been at schools when I do seminars and stuff, and I've watched people not do this. Someone walks in your door, I don't even see them smile or say hi or go up and shake their hand. Go up and do that. Meet the person. People are nervous. I think, especially in jiu-jitsu, maybe, you probably have experienced, I think adults are more nervous about their first class than a kid is.
Yeah, 100%.
Kids are nervous about not knowing another kid. Adults like, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I'm going to get hurt. And, I'll walk up there and talk to the adult quicker than I will a kid. Just because they're nervous. They are absolutely nervous. So, never underestimating establishing a relationship right from the beginning. But we follow that typical 90-day onboarding. Yes, you're going to get the student manual. You're going to get that thank you text the very first day, the student manual the next day. We're going to send you the picture that you took on your enrollment on the first night. And we're going to follow those things that you're teaching to everybody, that Maya's teaching. And we're going to do all that stuff. But when was the last time you actually sat with them at the edge of the mat and said, Daniel, man, you're doing great. How are we doing as far as what your goal was? Are we meeting that? Can I do anything different to help you? And if someone tells me they're not getting there, I'll say, listen, and I don't give an hour private lesson. Can you come in 20 minutes? When do you have 20 minutes this week? I'd be more than glad to one-on-one with you and help you out with that, with where you feel that you're falling short on. That's, we are in an industry that I think too many people, how do I want to say this? too many people want the bragging rights and not the life. I want the life, and I want my students to have, and maybe this is me being older, but I don't think so. I think this was the same guy I was when I pursued giving up. Who walks away from 6 figures and then have that employee or employer call you for 6 months when you're struggling, trying to beg you to come back and giving you a raise? You know,
Yeah.
I'm making 110,000, I think, in 96, and they were calling me. They were up to 150 for me to come back.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, and I'm barely trying to figure out how I'm eating anything other than macaroni this week. But no, I stuck to it. And I think, you know, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I know what it did for my life. And I want to have that same impact on someone else's life. And that's easy to do with 5 students, but that's not so easy to do with 500.
Sure.
And I think, you know, have those systems in place, but don't miss the simple fact that you have a one-on-one relationship.
I absolutely love that you said that. So I spoke at ATA's Thrive on the customer journey. And, you know, I think that people understand the surface level. Okay, it's relationships. I got to talk with them, right? I got to converse. And if I have that conversation, that's going to lead to the conversion of either the sign up or them continuing to come back, especially in jiu-jitsu where, you know, you pretty much get your butt kicked for the first 6 months. I mean, it might be 6 months before you're getting into a dominant position or you submit somebody. But the key missing ingredient, and you said it exactly, you sit down, you sit next to them, it's the connection. Like the conversation has to lead to a connection in order for the conversion to continuously happen over and over again. Yeah. And I think on a surface level, most people think, yeah, I've got good customer service. We say hi to every student when they walk in. We say their name 3 times. Like having the conversation versus making the connection, those are 2 different things with 2 different outcomes. So absolutely love that you said that.
Yeah, thank you. I was at a school and I put a friend of mine on the spot because they're a hardcore traditional karate school. And, you know, sir, yes, sir. And they walked in and he goes, hey, sir, how are you? Hey, sir, how, ma'am? So I asked him, I said, how long have they been a student? And he had to look at their belt and then he guesstimated. And I said, what do the parents do for a living? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, what's the mom and dad's name? I don't know. I said, I think you should know those things. I go, just food for thought. But what do you want me to teach tonight? You know, and I wasn't there to consulting, but I'm just like, I'm watching that. And I never heard anybody say, hey, Daniel, what's going on? How you doing, man? How's your knee? How's your daughter? Hey, did your daughter make the soccer team that she was going out for? How did it turn out? And that's what we miss. And I'm not going to tell you I know all 300 people's parents' names, you know, but my instructors do. You know, I don't because I don't teach all of them. But if I teach, I know your name. And, you know, that's you know, and it's twofold. When you have a relationship, so we had a leaking toilet. So the other day I heard it, like 2 weeks ago, I heard this leak, but I just assumed somebody went to the bathroom and it was still processing from the flush. And then I noticed I came in the other day and it was noon. And I'm thinking, wait, why is that toilet running? Because nobody's here. Then I shut down the toilet and a guy who's brand new, 4 weeks into the program, Daniel, I sat with him. I know his daughter's name. She's been to class. I gave her some stuff to sit at the table the other day. He's a single dad. He had her on Wednesday night. Hey, here's some stuff she can do. You know, here, she needed to charge her iPad. Here's a charger. My toilet's running. I'm like, he goes, hey, Hanshi, what's wrong with the toilet? I said, man, it's been running water. And he goes, well, I'm no plumber, but I do a lot of construction. He went and got the part and fixed it. Man. So I never asked him. And I said, Daniel, what'd that cost? And he goes, don't worry about it. I go, no, what did it cost? I go, give me the receipt. I said, you don't want me to choke you again, do you? And he gave me the receipt and, you know, it was $7. I said, here's 10. I don't have any ones. Well, here, I'll get you. I go, no, take the 10. And I go, listen, how long did it take you to do that? And he goes, it wasn't that long. He goes, maybe 2 classes. I said, okay. I know you won't charge me. You got time next week for an hour private lesson? Nice. And that's a relationship. I never asked him to do, but he felt that relationship or he wouldn't have offered that. Sure. And, you know, that's the same as they're going to talk about your program. They're going to tell more people than I can tell. My 160 students are going to meet more people than I am at an event. So, just talk and not necessarily that we got to use it, but just be sincere while you're in the business.
Yeah. I love that. So that's so good. As we kind of, wrap up here, I can't believe we're already like 45 minutes in. That's always a good sign when it flies by.
Yeah. Well, you've been around me long enough that I have to talk once I get going.
Well, that's what we're here to do, right? What do you think, going from Springfield here to Tampa, right? That was the next chapter. Your Tampa school is growing, Springfield is doing great. What do you think the next chapter after this is, or what is that next level? Because you don't like the retired word, right? And I think anybody that's a builder, a creator, an entrepreneur, I don't believe we will ever retire. I think there will be time periods where we will work less hard.
Yes.
And that's our form of retirement. But what does that next chapter look like for you? Where do you want to see this go?
I think, I'm always the challenge is what I think keeps me going. Why did I go for a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? And as you said, the longest in history of what we're doing, making some shift. But I wasn't fulfilled. I made a shift. I went backwards 5 years ago in my training, and not no negative reflection on that past. It was just that I didn't feel I was where I wanted to go. I needed that. I wasn't meeting that. So I think for me, for sure, I always look for that challenge. I want to hit the multiple locations. Is that 3 schools? Is that 5 schools? I don't see it being 55. I don't know if I've got that in me. I don't know if I've got that much time left in me. But, I definitely want to fulfill that. And, I have resolved that by feeling that as I shared with you, when I wanted to do this full time as a career, nobody did it. And I was told not to do it. Well, I think it is a great career. And if for the gentleman who's working for me, he's passionate, I want him to have a career at this. And the other person, I want you to have a career with this. And then it might be the number 2, number 3rd person up in Illinois. Do you want to move to Florida? Do you want, a career in this? Can I make a career, and can my legacy be to continue to impact lives, even when I'm not on the mat? So I think professionally, that professional goal is still do multiple locations. The personal goal, the fulfillment goal, the spiritual goal is to know what we're doing is delivering a product of helping people and change lives. And I still want to do that for sure. I see myself, I look at Bill Clark, because I think is a perfect example. Grandmaster Bill Clark, Dave Kovar, but I'm almost as old as Kovar, so I can't say that as much, but I think he falls in this category. Those are the guys that were those people when I was figuring out what a stat meant. They were the ones that were doing everybody's like, oh, do you know this person? No, but tell me about them. And so I think, when I look at Bill Clark, I just was at the Spark event in August. And Bill Clark, I went up and I always, have so much respect for him. I know he's at my events. He's at events. And what is great about that is I watch this guy who has probably achieved more than a room full of people will ever achieve by himself. And he's taking notes, listening to someone that he knows 1,000 times more information than that person speaking, but he's looking for that one detail still. And he's still out there. And I want to still be involved. I just don't want to have to I want to do what I want to do. And I don't know where I'm at. The left knee's getting worse and worse. The doctor told me my right knee's in the rear view mirror of my left knee.
Oh my gosh.
So, how long is the knee's going to last? And, but I see myself always, I still want to teach. I still want to do martial arts. I'm not the guy that's looking to be in the gym and do CrossFit, and not that those are wrong, but if I'm lifting weights, it's because I want my jiu-jitsu to be better. Or I'm making my leg get better so I can do jiu-jitsu longer. So my whole thing is I love still being a martial artist. So I don't see myself getting off the floor until my body says, hey man, we got to cut this back a little bit. But I probably see myself involved forever. And I think the multiple locations, and I think serving, hopefully I can be that guy when I'm gone that someone can say, he gave me my start. and students can say he changed my life. That's what I'm looking for. Because I don't know if I'll go down in any history books, but I want to go down in some people's lives, memories.
Well, I mean, speaking of books, and let's wrap up with this.
Yes.
You know, you just published your book. Talk to me about, what was this journey like? Because I know what it's like to write a book. It is a labor of love. I think it's whatever people think the effort is, like 10x it, because that's what it actually is. But, why did you write this? What is your hope with it? And talk to me a little bit about the process.
Yeah, well, it's a long story, so I got to keep it short because we're wrapping up. But, that book 20 years ago when I was consulting, I thought, I'm going to write a book. And then I'm like, what would that book be on? Because what am I going to do? Is try to be a lower version of Tony Robbins? What are you going to write? But we all know that as a martial artist, we all have something value that we're adding to someone's life. So really, at the end of that, it was, I had the little knee rehab I had to take for 12 weeks after the Pan Ams last March, and I'm like, you know what? I've said I'm going to write this book, and every year it's on my goal sheet. For 20 years, I look at this unfinished thing, write your book. Last year, I narrowed it down like, what I do on my floor, can I do a book that reflects that expands beyond my four walls? And in my childhood wasn't bad, there's people that have so many worse stories, but mine was chaotic. Mine was very unstructured. I had never met my father's side of the family until I was 27, and I was taught that they didn't want to be around me, and so that had some play on my self-esteem. It had some play on my value of life, and the martial arts is what kind of took that. So my whole thought was, I'm gonna talk to who is, and I always say this about my own teaching, I want to be the person that I needed in my life when I was 10. And if I can be that for somebody else. And the book was, can I be, and I feel like I'm doing it. I feel like I'm being that person for anybody that's in my four walls. Can I be that person for someone outside that four walls? Maybe somebody doesn't have the ability to be in martial arts. Can I do that for them? So that was the book. And it was I was telling someone the hardest part was once I got figured out the order, then it was easy to go through 20 years of writing and find the content. And most of the content probably, in all honesty, was rewritten. But as you know, when you're writing it, and then I have an editor and I said, hey, I'm going to do this book. He says, hey, I think it's ready. Can you send me the manuscript? And it took me 4 days to press to send. Because I'm like, I can do a bad mat chat on Monday and change it by Wednesday.
Yeah.
But
once it's in print, it's in print.
Yes. And I'm like, yeah, give me a while on that. And, I did the best I could. And I always appreciate that. You've had positive comments about it. I woke up to Herb Perez doing a video that I didn't expect. I wake up one day and Herb, and I've known Herb. I did videos with him with Century. And I'm like, I never expected that. And Herb doesn't do that a lot.
Yeah.
And, what gets me is when they're telling me, when you got other martial artists saying, I wish I had this book earlier. I wish I had it when I was a kid. And any educator and parent and school owner should have it for their kids. And I'm like, oh, I hit it. I maybe hit it better than I thought I did.
Yeah.
I don't, I was listening to an interview with Rick Rubin from Def Jam co-founder, and it really resonated with me because it was the week that I sent that they told me the book was going to go live. Went back, I knew I still had time to change things when we were waiting on the cover, and we were waiting on the interior design of the book. And then and it was perfect. It was almost like I hit this it was a godsend to listen to this interview. And he said, you do the best you can, your creativity, and you send it out to the world. And you send it back as a gift to God. And you cannot control if people like it or not. But when I started hearing people enjoy it, I'm like, oh, yes. So
thank you.
That was the thing. And I hoped it would have that impact. But the goal was, can this book help somebody, that doesn't have that mentor right now in their life? And can it give them that and, understanding self-esteem first, and then understanding this positive self-talk and our associations. And, that's it. That's what I hoped for with the book.
Well, I mean, smashing success. Every time I'm on Facebook, I'm seeing somebody in our industry with a picture of the book, sharing it, which is awesome. I think the timing of this is also really great, because what a great stocking stuffer to be able to sell this at if you're doing like a holiday event. I know we're going to have a bunch of copies for sale of this. So John, what's the best place for people to get it? Is Amazon the best place, or you tell me?
Yeah, that's interesting you say it, because I ordered 25 copies a day were released, and I just got them 2 days ago. So definitely Amazon if you're buying a book, for sure, because Amazon, everybody that's buying it from Amazon is getting in 2 to 3 days. If they can reach out, if I'm doing bulk orders now, because I didn't even thought about it being used in the school for leaderships and mat chats, and
100%.
a lot now. I've had 4 or 5 school owners that have bought 20 to 50 copies, and we've set up a bulk discount rate for them, so they can reach out to me on Facebook, or my name, John Geyston @gmail.com, and reach out to me, and I'd be more than glad to send them what the bulk rate is, and see if it's a fit, and then we'll get it to them if it is.
Awesome. I love it. John, any final words, any additional nuggets of wisdom or insight that you'd like to share?
And the only thing I would tell, I think we have an amazing career. I truly do. And I think now, if for young school owners, there's more resources to be successful than there ever was when this old man started.
Right.
But do it, use it, utilize it. And we have the ability to impact lives as great as any other profession, be it the ministry work, be it the medical work, educators. We are in that position, and there is a great career. There's a career path and finances of a career that I would have never thought. Those poor instructors of mine in the beginning never thought it to be. So yeah, just it's out there. Use the resource. Our industry is hopping right now, and there's experts everywhere to reach out to. Yourself, there's so many different resources for people to use. But all them resources weren't there. I think there was, in the beginning, there was United Professionals and EFC, which are two, United Professional no longer around, but EFC still out there. But that was it back then.
Yeah.
So
there was no YouTube, there was no Google, there were no Facebook groups,
No, the resources are there, and I just think it's exciting. I think if you're passionate about them, but make sure your passion's there, because this isn't there's a lot of other ways to make money rather than faking being the martial artist thing. You got to be passionate.
100%. Well, John, thanks so much. Everybody, please make sure you go get a copy of his book, Embrace Your Awesome. I've had a blast with you today. Appreciate your time and your energy.
I always appreciate time with you. I'm always inspired when I'm wrapped up, even a Facebook message with you, I feel inspired with. So thank you for being you, and thank you for the friendship, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, John.